You see these posts on LinkedIn that are like, oh, I use Claude Code and now it just does everything for me. And it's just flat out not true. And it turns out it's really hard if you want to send 50,000 emails a day to build that system. Like it's not something you can just vibe code.
The Next Gen Sales Leaders Podcast. Coffees for Closers.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Next Gen Sales Leader Podcast. My name is Benjamin Reed. I'm here with Alex Shartsis. He's the founder of Skyp.ai. It is GTM for startups. We're going to get deep into it. There's so much to talk about because right now, SaaS and AI seem to be in a battle. We've seen HubSpot, we've seen Salesforce tank in valuations. We've seen everybody and their brother use Claudebot at this time and date. We are recording this on March 4th, 2026. And we are in the middle of the craziest transition between the non-AI world and the AI agentic world, and SaaS is under fire. Welcome to the show. Would love to know more about Skyp and how you guys fit into the crazy world we find ourselves in GTM.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It's not, yeah, March 4th. I mean, probably by the time we post this, it'll be out of date. Like, you know, it's just everything's happening so fast now. It's like we'll be talking about Codex and how Claude Code sucks, and Codex is the future. You know, within a week. Yeah, I mean, so Skyp, we set out. I work with a lot of startups. We started working with larger companies as well, but as I was telling you before the show, Ben, I advise startups, and outbound is still really effective if you do it right. And what we realized, what my research showed when I looked at a bunch of the AI SDR type tools and instantly and everything is they don't work, or they don't work the way they used to work, right? Like it used to be that if in 2018, if you did the research and wrote a thoughtful email, or yeah, hey Ben, I listened to your last podcast. It was really, Alex was on it. It was really useful. I took some of that and went and did this. You'd always get a reply because people would feel like you're a human and you put in the work. And now the opposite is true. It's like, oh, you obviously used AI to scrape my podcast, and you like delete. And so the world really changed, but email is still really effective. Like you open, like we chatted on email to set up this podcast. Like, you know, there's so many things that still work. And what we wanted to do with Skyp was basically take AI and leverage it for the parts of email that aren't broken. So not sending 50,000 emails a day to every CTO of a Series A company in the country, or in the world, but rather, you know, being targeted and being thoughtful. And so that's what we built Skyp to do, is both to automate that outbound motion and also to do some things with warm outbound and follow up and you know, other areas where as a salesperson, like I've been in sales for 20 years, you need to send emails. You don't necessarily want to write all of the emails that you need to send. And so that's what we focus on.
This is a break in the podcast to bring you our sponsor, RevyOps.com. That is REVYOPS.com, the #1 GTM data management platform for your GTM and revenue operations data on planet Earth. If you are using the modern stack of Clay and Instantly and Email Bison and RB2B and Trigify and all these various tools scattered across the wind, we unify all that data all into one place so you don't have any duplicates, a unified view of every single contact so you can see all the data and all the activities across all the platforms all in one place. It will allow you and your team to move faster, to get better attribution across the entire funnel, and to make a heck of a lot more money. Go to RevyOps.com, check out how you can get started today with me on a call where we'll learn about your data management problems and how we can get you guys to the next level of growth. See you guys at RevyOps.com. Go there now. It will be in the show notes as well down below. Let's get back to the podcast. Yeah, it's interesting because we're in this world of debate right now. Like it was before, it was, you know, Clay versus, I don't know, Zoom Info, or Apollo versus Zoom Info. And then it was Clay versus Apollo. And then, you know, and now that there was this debate last, I think in like July of 2025 of like GTM engineers versus RevOps. And now it's, you know, Clay versus Claude Code. And there's always a new hype cycle, right? What's the new thing that's disrupting the next thing? And
Right.
and I think there's a really great quote from the book Breakthrough Advertising with Eugene Schwartz, where he talks about your buyer will continue to buy new experiences and new solutions if their problem is not completely and thoroughly solved. And so what we're seeing here, the reason there's all these new widgets and capabilities, they're all trying to solve the same freaking problem, which is, how do I cohesively and coherently and completely reach out to an ideal customer profile without missing anything. It's like that's like the fundamental goal, right? I want to target the right people, message them appropriately, and not miss it, and maximize my conversion so I can get the most revenue. So I think everyone's kind of focused in the right direction, but it seems like right now there's a debate on how to do it. And I think you brought up the point of, well, obviously mass blast cold email is kind of slowly dying. I wouldn't say it's dead. We see people with some success, but
Yeah,
it's
no, it's not dead.
slowly.
It's definitely not dead, but it's the cost of doing it has gone up, and the results you get per minute or dollar spent have gone down, right? You need more domains, more email accounts, right? And maybe more AI tokens, and you're going to get a lower response rate just because you're going to get a lower response rate.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I remember even what days? Yeah, so about a year and a half ago, we were getting consistently across cold email clients from my GTM agency, we were getting around 5 to 6% reply rates. And then October of that year, the Outlook slap happened, and we went down to like 2.7%. It would like literally cut in half. And then just recently, like there was this period where we went down to like 0.9, and then it started rising back up. So deliverability and results on cold email, I think there's just no doubt. I think somebody just came out and said something around why LinkedIn's algorithm is so like we're not getting reach on algorithm on LinkedIn, and they said that their system is so overwhelmed with spam, like AI bullshit. Like everyone just goes into Claude and goes, give me like a cool take
Right.
on the Iran situation with cold email, and they just slap it in there. So I'm setting the context for the podcast here with anyone listening. What do you see? Like, I mean, what do you think this is all hype? Is this human craziness? Like, what do you think is true? You know, because I think we're all kind of in this fog of war moment where it's like, it's hard to
Yeah, I mean,
know.
if this was a LinkedIn post, I'd be like, SaaS is fine, right? I mean, it needs to be a hot take if you want it to go anywhere on LinkedIn. I think that it's nuanced. So I think that what people don't understand, I mean, I'll tell you the story of how Skip started, and I think it really speaks to this. Skip started because I had this insight. I mentioned it to a friend, and he was like, I'll buy. Like you said, right? I have this problem. It sounds like you can solve it. $2,500 a month seems reasonable. Let's go. Right. And so I was like, okay, great. Like now I got to go, build this thing. And I had shown him a vibe coded prototype. It was just the front end, right? It was pretty rudimentary, done in Bolt, back when I used Bolt a lot, right? And it took me a day, right? And it was still like, you need to know what you're trying to do. Like you need to be a product manager and really understand the problem deeply, know what each step is, right? And if you do that, you can do a pretty good job. We're now 8 or 9 months later. I have a CTO partner who has a master's in computer science from Cambridge and an undergrad from Cambridge in computer science and has been building stuff professionally for the last 2 decades. And it turns out it's really hard if you want to send 50,000 emails a day to build that system. Like it's not something you can just vibe code, and be like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're totally sending 300,000 or 500,000 emails a month across a bunch of clients, and it just works, right? It's like, it's not easy. And so you see these posts on LinkedIn that are like, oh, I use Claude Code and now it just does everything for me. And it's just flat out not true. Like
It's just
I have,
bullshit. Yes.
yeah, I mean, I have the better part of a CS degree from Dartmouth, and I know my shit, and I use Claude Code every day, and it can do a lot of cool stuff, but it can't do that. And so I think one of the reasons why we were successful early was that we both really understood coding, and we really understood how computers work, and really understood software architecture, right? And if you don't know those things, like Claude Code will get you part of the way there, but if you're trying to build something that you don't have to like throw out next week because it stopped working, like SaaS is just fine. And I think the other piece is, um, I mean, I've advised founders for a long time. People know that they send me, their friends and stuff. And there are a bunch of people out there who raise money who have no idea how to build a product. And
Mm-hmm.
so, there's a certain degree of like, you got to make tough choices. Even if you're making tough choices for members of your own team, you still have to make tough choices. And if you don't know how to do that, um, to me, that's the value of RevOps or Skip or Instantly even. I mean, any of these products, like they have the infrastructure, they've done the hard work to make it work, they're maintaining it, and they know the workflow. They've made the tough trade-offs. Whereas if you're just like, oh, I'm going to go tell Claude, like, build me an email sending engine, here's my SendGrid API key, it's not going to go well for you.
Mm-hmm. I think that this is one of those Dunning-Kruger effect type of moments where, for anybody who doesn't know what Dunning-Kruger is, it's where at the beginning of a journey, there is exuberant overconfidence and belief in how easy and quickly you can do something. And as you go through the learning curve, you start to realize the difficulties and you become pessimistic, but over time you come back out
Right.
the other
Yeah, it's
side.
sort of like the crossing the chasm in a sense, but like that's more about the individual mindset versus the journey. But I mean, the thing that this reminds me of, like that exact thing is, I don't know if you guys have heard of Launch Darkly, but Launch Darkly is a $3 billion unicorn company. Friend of mine started, product manager, and she they sell what's called feature flags. So if you have software and you want some people to see a feature and other people not to, or you want to test a feature, or you're launching it, you're not sure if it's going to work, you want to be able to turn it off, right? That's what they do. That's the software they sell. It does that in a really elegant way. And people thought it was pretty easy. So they're like, oh, we don't. This was pre-AI. This was 5 years ago. They're like, oh, we don't need that. We'll just build our own. And they ended up setting up their own a website to tell you how to build your own feature flags because they knew once you tried it and failed, you'd come back and buy their software. Like, a lot of people would have to go try and fail before they would buy. Like they wouldn't.
That's a great
They
point.
just would. And I think that's my co-founder and I were talking about this. It's like, hey, is everybody going to run out and use Claude Code and try and build an AI, an email outbound engine to write emails, and then show up 2 weeks later when it breaks, it doesn't work, or they're now in the spam penalty box, and be like, oh, maybe we should have used Skip the whole time. Like maybe that was a mistake. And I think to a certain degree that's happening. Like people are trying it and then they're realizing, oh, I thought this was going to be a 2 hour. The YouTube video I watched said I could do this in 12 minutes. And like, here we are 2 days later and it still doesn't work. So,
Yeah. I think it's very difficult to understand from I'm trying to put myself in the perspective of a non-technical, non-product oriented salesperson who just got their hands on Claude Code and they're ambitious enough and smart enough and also have an eye on building their own thing. So they get access to like Lovable or Bolt or Claude or Cursor, whatever your choice of AI building tool is. And they go build a first prototype like you described. And it just feels, I think the feeling for them is just like, finally I can actually sell something that I own and I built and I don't have to work for the asshole CTO guy, And so I think that there's this deeper underlying pent up creative as well as frustration in the sales world where guys just want to be able to build shit. They're actually pretty creative people, creative salespeople. The problem that most of them don't recognize, and I'm speaking from, I've built 4 SaaS companies, sold 1, I bought 2, and I actively have 9 developers with Revy apps. And so I'm speaking from like, I have failed, I've gone down this journey. It is wild how difficult it is to build software. People completely underestimate the complexity. And that's just in terms of the actual development process. I'm talking about, like you said, the product management. And for anyone who doesn't know what a product manager is, it's the greatest quote I've heard about it is that it's the eye of a designer, the heart of a marketer, and the brain of an engineer. And it's like a cross section. And your job is to distill from all possible things you could put into an app what should go there, what the actual user journey is, what the job to be done is, and then perfectly solve that with elegant user experience in terms of the buttons, in terms of the way that they click, in terms of the way that the whole thing cohesively works together. That is not hard to do. And you might be like saying, well, I got Lovable to do it in 2 minutes. Fair. But then there's edge cases. And the scope comes in the edge cases where you have to make, like you said, those trade-offs of, well, if we do this, then we fuck ourselves over here. And there's
right.
20 of those a day, and you've got to make them right, because if you make a wrong decision today, in 4 months from now, that decision might come back to a full rewrite.
Yeah, I have an example of this. I mean, so we made the choice that every contact in Skip had to have a first name and an email as a minimum. You're sending personalized emails, so it seemed like reasonable to require a first name. Then we had one of our largest customers who had Salesforce records that didn't have first names on them. I don't know how they got to that place, but they ended up with all these records. And they're like, they're our customers. We know what they ordered. We just don't know their first name. Can we still send them emails? And, I was like, fine. Like, you guys are really, you can't run a campaign without this. The first campaigns you guys paid us thousands of dollars to run. Like, fine, we'll relax the restriction. So the next customer that signs up has this garbage campaign because we let them upload without first names. They're like, oh, like why does it say hi there? Like, why didn't it tell me that the first names weren't in the, like, they had basically like mistitled it. Like, we use AI, so you had to do a really big, like really bad job of mistitling your columns, but they'd somehow managed to confuse the AI enough that it couldn't find the first name. And instead of throwing an error, it just threw out the names because it's like, oh, that's not a first name. We'll just use the email. And so it's one of those trade-offs where it's, my partner was like, yeah, I mean, you said it was okay, boss. Like, not boss, but like, you said we should relax this restriction. But the flip side is now people can have this bad experience where we would have thrown an error before and required them to go fix their column titles. But now, like, we allow it. And the result of that is this bad experience. So, I mean, even in just making a simple, like, that's as simple as it gets, right? And of course, the person who's ever built software will be like, oh, well, if it's, the problem was the name field had first name and last name, right? And it's like in one column. And it's like, yeah, if you can say, oh yeah, you should just split it, right? That's all you're going to do. You're going to go to Claude or ChatGPT. You're going to be like, take this column, split it into two columns. What do you do with Mary Jane? Like, is Jane the last name? I mean, there's no way, like, it is not a solvable problem. It's not an edge case. Like, it requires software to fix. And there's no like magic AI solution to it that's going to be right enough that you're not going to have egg on your face when you send an email to Mary Jane Smith or something, right? I mean, it's one of those problems where it's like, yeah, this is where a product manager would at least know what trade-off you were making at the time versus a salesperson more like me who's like, oh, the customer wants this, let's just do this.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, obviously we've solved that. That was months ago. There's three other things that we're that we're dealing with now, but it's not as simple as it sounds. None of this stuff is as simple as it sounds. And I think you mentioned like Lovable, like using Lovable for stuff that you can one shot. To me, there are some things that are gone forever, like microsites, right? Like you can build or like an ROI calculator, right? Like you can build an insane ROI calculator in Lovable or Bolt or any of these tools that'll blow away anything that consultants would have charged you 30 grand for 5 years ago. Some HubSpot. I mean, I used to have like clients, or I had one that we built ourselves in HubSpot. It was a fortune, right? I mean, HubSpot's charging you a bunch of money. Consultants charge you a bunch of money. It takes a month to get it live if you're lucky because you got to go back and forth, all this stuff. Like Lovable, 3 minutes done. And it's, you get all this great data, right? It's piped straight into your email. It's like, it's amazing what you can do now. But when you get into more complex stuff, like it's like half magic. It gets you like, it gets you the fireworks, but like there's nothing underneath it. There's, the ongoing maintenance and usage isn't there.
And I think that's where your point about they have to fail, right? So this idea that if somebody doesn't experience the failure, they just simply won't believe. I think that because at face value, I mean, even if, let's say I don't have all the experience, you don't have all your experience, and we're just sales guys coming in, and we're like, ooh, we want to solve this problem. This is such a cool tool. At face value, it seems like pure magic, like you said, but it's half magic. For example, Reviops.com. If you go to Reviops.com right now, check out my website. I built that on Lovable, that full website, everything in there, every single component of it, in about 12 hours total time. Every page across the entire site, Lovable. I built an ROI kind of revenue calculator for GTM agencies on Lovable. Took me about 6 hours. And I use Figma Make. So for me, these low code tools from a prototyping perspective, as a product manager who can then give that to a real CTO and team, it's unlocked my ability to design and rapidly iterate on user experience. So I want to just be clear for anybody who's listening to this. I am like all in on this from a prototyping perspective and from a microsite perspective. But this is where we have to hold two competing ideas in our mind. And the problem is that people that don't have that deeper experience of application building believe, okay, if it can do this so well, then certainly it can go and build RevOps or Skip, in the next 3 hours. And they just simply don't get that. As an example, just to like really just drive this nail home for anybody. RevOps, everyone thinks like, oh, I'll get Supabase, I'm going to get Lovable, which Lovable connects to Supabase, or I'm going to get Claude and Supabase to do data migrations and data joining and data analytics. And we don't need RevOps. Why would we need it if we have that? That's the argument for some of the GTM crowd. What they don't know is that RevOps is not just a Postgres database, which is what Supabase is. And I can't believe we're having this discussion with salespeople, but here we are talking about the difference between Postgres.
It's like, I remember the Yacht Club Superbase discussion, which went on. It's probably still going on right now. But
they still don't believe me, like at this very moment. So RevOps, and I'll fill the users in on this. I'll finish my point, and then I'll say the SaaS Yacht Club. But RevOps has 4 databases. It has Postgres. It has a columnar database, which is for analytics, because when you do multivariant queries that are not what they call indexed, meaning that you're not repeating the query very often across users, so you wouldn't set up pre-built query rules in your database that automatically pulls the data. Super in the weeds. Your probably eyes are rolling back in the back of your head. But that matters because you literally can't have your graph load if you don't have something called a columnar database. Look into BigQuery, Redshift, any of these big tools. Then if you have, just as a simple example, we have one client who we connect to their HubSpot. They have 500,000 contacts. Now, anybody listening is like, I could put 5 billion contacts in Postgres. Sure, you can. But now if you have 50 custom fields on 500,000 contacts, you come out with something like 500 million rows of data in your actual table, in your database. And now you have 500 million rows, and you now need to query on those custom fields. So you say, show me North American CTOs who replied in the last 90 days, who also visited the website and also have previously been in a deal cycle, right? A very specific query. You will now sit there on a search just to pull up the subset of the data for 5 minutes, just pulling that. I know because I tried. And so what happens with these guys is they just think like, oh, the problem is so shallow, or the solution is so shallow. These guys are crazy for building this stuff, and they just haven't reached the edge case. But the problem is as you reach the edge case, you realize there's 5 other edge cases that you haven't even seen. And the deeper you go, the worse it gets. And by the time you actually get to the point where you're problem aware, and you realize, fuck, I just spent 6 months building this application, and it is fucked. You've now wasted $4,000 a month in compute credits from Claude, all of your team's time. You now have to go rebuild the tool from scratch or hire a professional. I just think that there's going to be a come to Jesus here, and I think about 6 to 12 months with all the people vibe coding right now. I think that's the point you're making.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think we've already heard it a little bit where he came out, I want to say a month or 2 ago, it might as well have been, well, it literally was last year, that, none of the enterprises that were doing AI had gotten any value out of it. And I can't remember if it was like an EY or McKinsey survey or it was one of the big consulting firms. And I was like, how is that? I get so much value out of it every day. Like, how could you possibly screw it up? Like how, but I think some of it's the kind of problems you're talking about where it's like, yeah, if you have a really messy, really large legacy data set stored across a bunch of different tables and a bunch of different systems, like this isn't like I'll just give it to Lovable and it'll be done in an hour kind of a problem. It's like you kind of need to know what you're doing. And there might be HIPAA or other restraints depending on the organization. Like it's not just like a one-shot, Claude Code will handle it kind of a problem. And there are edge cases even within one customer, right? You're talking about edge cases across customers. Like you ran into that sort of query speed problem with one specific customer, right? But you have other customers with other problems, right? Imagine if you're doing this for a big enterprise, like they'll have a bunch of edge cases just on their like sales team, like just on their marketing team will come up with another dozen edge cases that you have to address. And so I think what's interesting, I've always wondered why people buy Salesforce. I mean, I bought it years ago, but now it's like, this isn't even usable out of the box, right? Like if you buy Salesforce, you're going to spend at least 6 months paying tens of thousands of dollars to a consultant to make it do anything at all.
I know, it's crazy.
It's useful.
I hate Salesforce.
Right? but part of that's because like the companies that buy Salesforce, like going through that process and setting it up is a key part of getting value out of it. Like you got to figure out, well, what are my sales steps, right? What is, is it negotiating and then close one, or is it negotiating and then implementation? Like, there's so many different, everybody has their own unique thing. And what Salesforce has done a great job of is kind of selling the dream and then building the ecosystem around implementing that dream, right? And some of that's change management, some of that's software. I think I think just because you can go vibe code something, it like doesn't mean it's going to work. Doesn't even mean it's going to necessarily solve your problem. Funny story. I talked to a guy, may have also been in that same group, who was struggling with some outbound, and I like they were clearly not really like of a size and scale to use Skip, but I was like, I'm happy to just spend 20 minutes and like help you debug what you're doing wrong and instantly, right? And he was doing like four things right and 18 things wrong, like I mean, it's just basic stuff like too many emails per. Yeah, some of it was right, but he'd screwed up other stuff. Like he'd screwed up his DNS settings. He was sending these really generic templated emails, like that were all the same. There was no AI to them at all, which like we do a better job than instantly, but you can do something in instantly. Like don't do nothing, right? And it's like hi Bob. I noticed that there were a couple of problems with your website. Do you want me to send you some suggestions? And it's like you're sending this template to 1,000 people, and you think it's not going to end up in spam. Any of them are going to reply. Like this is lunacy, right? And so, I mean, I think you also take for granted. My point is, he has ChatGPT what to do, and that's what ChatGPT told him what to do. So it's like the AI doesn't actually know. It's not an expert. Like it's like average to below average. Um, so you can fool yourself into thinking like, oh, I'll go talk to Claude Code or I'll go talk to ChatGPT, and it's gonna build the perfect CRM because it knows everything there is to know about CRMs. And like really, you have to know what you're doing. And so with ReviOps, with Skip, like a lot of these products, I mean, there's a bunch of great products out there for GTM. Um, a lot of the value is that people who built them know the right way to get things done. And so if you use the product, you're benefiting from that sort of founder, product manager knowledge about the job to be done that you would otherwise be sort of, it's like doing it on ChatGPT is like, I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. Like, oh yeah, I can do brain surgery. I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express. Like, oh yeah, I can build a RevOps stack because I vibe coded it in Claude. Like it's kind of the same thing.
There's no doubt. I think that people wildly underestimate the value of subject matter expertise in a world in which you can go and ask an AI thing anything. And the truth is that the vast majority of the up-to-date knowledge sets of the human mind are not actually on the internet. Like the nuanced, subtle details about why certain decisions are made or why things are good or bad are locked in the minds of product managers around the world or entrepreneurs or people around the world who have yet to talk about it. It's unfolding in real time when we learn something new. And so then you ask ChatGPT, hey, how should I set this up? And it's looking at information that might be right for 6 months ago or 3 months ago or even 2 weeks ago. Right. But we're moving so fast right now that the decisions you're making off the information you get from an AI is typically dated. Now, there is foundational like best practices on how to do stuff, but even then it's debatable. Like I remember as a senior in college, I wrote a 200-page paper for this degree, a specialized degree I was getting called a Bachelor of Philosophy degree in political science. And I went and I literally went to the library and watched thousands of these microfilms or looked at these microfilms, which is old clippings of newspapers and CIA documents. And I analyzed different CIA agents' perspectives on their view of what happened in the world, right? And what I found in analyzing those people is that there was like 4 or 5 different major streams of perspectives, and they would dramatically change based upon every political changeover that occurred across Democrats, Republicans, but also across time. And so the story or the insights you would have gotten from a GPT that analyzed those microfilms, which are probably not online, by the way, would be wildly different depending upon which angle or perspective you got. in the example of sales, I have a very particular method. So I prefer the closed CRM platform. I've tried Pipedrive, I've tried HubSpot and Monday and yada yada, go high level. I've tried them all on Salesforce. But every CRO, every head of sales has their own kind of spin on, well, what should your lead status be? And then how should your opportunity pipelines go, like you were saying before. So, you can't just come out as a college grad who's never actually run a sales org, who actually doesn't know how to, architect sales process and go, I'm going to go just build this thing from scratch without understanding all the edge cases just in building the strategy. I'm not even talking about building a product. I'm not even talking about how do you technically architect that product. I'm just talking about like, what is the right product to build? And this is where I know I'm on a tangent here, but I'll finish up by saying the problem with AI is a solution looking for a problem. And one of the core lessons I learned 10 years ago was just never go to market with a solution looking for a problem. You will always, unless it is frickin' AI itself, unless you are open AI, where just like, here's this amazing thing, you can fly. Short of that, you better have a very defined problem, a very defined job to be done. And you hear these guys with the Claude bot being like, it has completely revolutionized my life and it now organizes my calendar and tells me what to eat. And it's just like, but what problem are you solving? You're installing this thing on your computer to go train it some skills so someday it grows up and it's a super Saiyan that takes care of you. But there's no actual clear reason. It's just, I want to replace things.
Well,
what do you want to replace?
There's so many things in there. I think the one thing that is just so on point is your comment about like a bunch of college kids that just went out and did a thing because they thought they saw it and they thought they could do it. That describes every AI SDR company where they're just like, oh, we can take these leads and we can take this AI writing bot and we can just spam them all. And I mean, that's, I think, part of why we started Skip was I was like, these guys have never run a sales organization. Like, I mean, they've sold Andreessen and they've sold a lot of people. So it's not that they can't sell. I don't mean to take anything away, but like they haven't gone through that CIA kind of like evolution of like, now I'm 40 and I've done this 5 times and I've seen the failure modes. To them, it's just like, oh yeah, Andreessen gave me 50 million or somebody gave me 25 million. And so I'm just going to go out and like do this arbitrage and like get the contacts from Apollo or, Cognizant and stick them in to ChatGPT and like, it's going to be amazing. And that's not the job to be done. Like, it seems like the job to be done, but to me, like if you've ever run a sales team, like what you're building, what I'm building, like that's not how sales, like from like the college campus when you're interviewing, yeah, that looks like what salespeople do. But like when you're actually have been in sales and run sales teams, like that's not really it, right? It's, maybe it is transactional, but there's still some relationship building. There's more to it than just like find leads, send emails. And I think, I think the other thing that, I know it's kind of one of the things you said triggered is this notion of you go into Claude Code with the job to be done. Well, taking a step back, people didn't realize that AI was going to be so useful for coding. Like that wasn't necessarily the first order problem they were solving, right? And so, I mean, if you go back, like the old X.AI, I don't know if you remember it, but I was an early user, was like a meeting scheduler. These guys, ex-Yahoo guys in New York set up this like AI meeting scheduler. Did you use it? Do you remember it at all?
No.
So
No.
it was, I mean, this was when I was raising venture money for my company, like my last company, which must have been like 2015. And so, I mean, so many things. First off, it claimed to be AI, but it was really like 40 millennials locked in a warehouse in New York, like who were just grinding, just writing the emails. Like it said like, oh, you could just CC Amy at X.AI and she is an AI and she'll schedule your meeting. But really there was a person named Amy in a warehouse in New York getting paid $20 an hour to just like grind through being an assistant. And there was some bad press. And then they didn't have LLMs, so like it didn't work so well. So like it would do a great job if the humans were doing it, but then they'd try and turn on more machine learning and it would go to total shit, pardon my French, and it wouldn't work. But that was like a use for AI back then, right? Nobody was like, oh, we're going to do this for coding. That wasn't, at least back then, that wasn't one of the top choices. So, I mean, it's interesting that they found product market fit in this thing that wasn't necessarily like the thing they were going to go do, or the thing that they set out to solve. Um, anyway, I mean, I'll go on a tangent next, so I'll leave it there. But it's really interesting to see what the perspective, like the perspective you have from having done it a bunch of times, running teams, working with clients, is very different than somebody who's, in college saying like, oh, this would be a great idea. I think I'll go, make a nutritional Claude bot that reminds me not to eat McDonald's. Like,
Yeah.
does the
I,
world
I
really
think
need
the
that?
order of magnitude of difficulty is wildly broad depending upon what you're doing. And again, that's where the challenge is. And what's funny is most of the GTM crowd, they are trying to build the most difficult product they can build, which is deep integrations across multiple tools, doing some type of normalization and ID to then perfectly time outreach to the right lists without screwing stuff up. I mean, you can't solve a much more difficult problem than that if you're trying to doing it correctly. That's what ReviOps solves, but they're trying to do it.
Well,
What were you
I
gonna
mean,
say?
so the company I've raised money for and built before was called Perfect Price. It did AI for pricing. So same thing. We could talk about that. It's a whole other conversation. Did a lot of outbound for it. It was super effective, but again, different subject. But my point is, like, we learned two things. Two or three things that I walked away from that were key learnings from that experience. First is when you're building AI products, you cannot be wrong, right? Like we did a pricing study for Circle K in multiple countries, and they focused on the two gas stations that were next to executives that were in the presentation because they thought that our pricing a couple times was wrong, even though there were like a million other data points where they're like, we're not talking about those because they're probably fine, but we're going to just waste this whole meeting complaining about where we think the AI was wrong because I drove by it this morning and I think it should be, like it's like no data, right? Just completely subjective. But so avoiding being wrong is super important, and it's hard. It's like a very hard problem. The other thing we learned is that first party data is very hard to scale a product or a business with because I mean, you're probably seeing this with RevOps, but you plug into anybody's HubSpot's got different custom fields, has got a different opportunity stage, has got a different lead stage. It's very hard to build scalable software when you're plugging into messy, unscalable data structures. And in theory, you could throw AI at it, but in practice, what we've tried, you can't, right? You can't just be like, oh, here's their HubSpot, figure out what's wrong with it, and magically transmute it into something that works with our data structure. Like, not a thing. Um, and then the third thing, I think, which kind of comes out of those two is like, there are really two kinds of sales motions that I think are really effective in this AI world. And they both have pros and cons. I'm not saying one's better than the other. One of them is more of that AI SDR notion that looks like an ad network. Like the Kleiner Sequoia company that I worked for was a mobile ad network we turned it into a mobile ad network back in 2011. And I mean, I closed $250,000 in sales in 8 days just because like mobile was that hot. And I remember one person I walked into a meeting with, and he was like, you're the 48th ad network I've talked to this week. They had the top app in the App Store, and all we did was look at the top apps and call them up. And I was like, so you're going to install the SDK or what? He's like, yeah, it'll be in by Tuesday. I mean, it's just like, because it was so transactional and it was completely third party, it's like, you install this thing, we get you new customers. If it doesn't work, you rip it out, right? But like, it's just a money machine. You put 10 grand in, you get 15 out. You put 100 grand in, you get 150 out, right? Like, do you want to keep using the money machine? Yes, I do. As soon as you put 100 in and you get 90 out, you stop using it, right?
Exactly.
But so that's one sales motion, which I think the AI SDRs really epitomize, where it's like, here's the machine, it'll get you customers, just, plug it in, put in the money, and off you go. And then the other side of it is more what you're doing, and maybe you're not quite as deep, but it's like the unified GTM kind of thing, where it's like you're gonna spend 6 months embedding this stuff and customizing it and connecting it, right? And you're gonna spend $500,000, all in on service providers and software and everything to get this to work. And then maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But like, you signed a 3-year deal and you spent $500,000 setting it up. So you're probably gonna make it work, aren't you though? Right. And so, I mean, I think those are kind of the two, I mean, they're extremes, but those to me are kind of the two modes we work in. I mean, I think the winning mode is where you can get that first motion in the door and show value, and then you expand. Like that's Skip's approach is like, yeah, we'll do your, whatever GTM outbound motion you need to do right now because you have a conference coming up, because you have revenue goals to hit, because you have this thing your sales team wants to try, but they haven't had the tools to try it. Like we can get that going in a week or two, right? But like then we're going to integrate with your Salesforce or your HubSpot and figure out a way to get more out of your closed loss deals. Then we're going to figure out how to go find lookalikes for existing customers. Then we're going to figure out what were the triggers that somebody, that led to somebody buying, and maybe back test that and then figure out how to go find more people at that same stage. Um, right. But if we went in with that value prop, I think our close rate would be a lot lower and our sales cycle would be monstrous because it takes time, it takes effort, it costs money. So,
I think also that when you have like a Salesforce like org, and I think Salesforce isn't a great example because their brand is just so dominant. But imagine like I mean, even RevOps, right? So like RevOps isn't a well-known brand yet. We've only been around for a couple of years. That said, it is a pretty advanced tool. And if I try to sell everything in the tool on day one, well, first off, the sales pitch will be 5 hours. But also, it's just not effective. It's like okay, you can do this and this and this and this and this and this. It's like, well, choose the one thing that they really want, right? And get them that quick win. I think is a really good point. I think also because, when you're on the cutting edge of anything, if it's not obvious, then you do have this like educational problem. And when you're educating people on anything, it's a grind. And then the person has to process and think. And so I think the key to sales is just that slippery slope idea of like, I really want this thing. You're really bottlenecked. Like, look, I got this nice button. Push the button,
well,
and
no, I mean,
it's like,
but that's the thing I think, any startup, as you know, is a grind, right? Even if you have great product market fit, so you're always grinding somehow, right? The product market fit you had, especially in this market, like a month ago, might not be true now. The channel that worked, like you talked about LinkedIn, email, LinkedIn worked great, then it doesn't work great. Like there's always something to be frustrated by and to be, trying to solve. But I think what's interesting and the thing that gets me excited about Skip is we go in, I think our last 3 customers closed within 24 hours of a first meeting, right? I mean, and that's not to say there aren't a bunch that take weeks or months to decide. We closed somebody that we talked to in October. We tried instantly for a while and came back and we're like, well, that didn't work. Maybe we should go with your thing, right? But I think it's because we're just like, this is the thing that it does. Is that a problem for you? And people are like, yes, that's my number one problem right now. Let's go. Right. And as soon as you throw, the Chinese menu at them, like the Cheesecake Factory, like, oh, you could have anything, then you end up with like, oh, I don't know what I want. Like, cheesecake
mm-hmm.
sounds pretty good. A burger sounds pretty good. Fettuccine sounds pretty good. Like, it becomes this, like, I don't know, like the founder's mentality of like, oh, or a salesperson, like, oh, the more stuff I have on the truck, the more likely I am to make a sale is actually reversed. And it's like the more stuff you have on the truck, the less likely people are going to know what to do next, right? Like, well, I don't know, which do I do first? Do I have the cheesecake first? We're at war. Maybe I should have dessert first now. But I think that the problem, what's interesting is like the problem that is to me is universal, right? Like what salesperson is not sending emails, right? Or communicating somehow, whether it's LinkedIn or WhatsApp or whatever. Like to me, it's like, and the thing that I get blown away by is you see these Claude Code things or new products and stuff. And it's like, why do you need to spend so much time configuring something to do basically what everybody else is doing? Right. Like why does it have to be so perfect that it like catches the snowflake when it's exactly, 12 and a half inches off the ground. And that's when it sends the email. Like, I mean, I don't know. It's just something that I've noticed more and more lately is like there's a lot of extra thought that goes into stuff in the GTM space that I question. Like you've made it really complex now. Did it need to be that complex? Like,
Mm-hmm. There's no doubt. I mean, I think, and that's where it's a bewildering space. That's why anybody listening is like, what are they even talking about? This is crazy. We are, you and I, in particular, because we run these companies, are deep in the intersection of this crazy world, like I started the whole podcast on. And the reason that we're even having this discussion is because for some reason, salespeople want to be developers all of a sudden. And so they're truly, like, people are talking about, like, how do you deploy to Git, and like what exactly, what is exactly the compute that we're going to need for this? Oh no, we just capped out on compute. We need to raise the servers. It's like, what are we talking about, guys? You guys are salespeople. What are you doing? And so the world, somebody put on LinkedIn, if you aren't actively using Claude and you are not actively using AI, you're dead in sales. And I'm just like, it's just straight bullshit. It doesn't make sense. You still need great product managers.
I mean, I agree, but I agree and I disagree. I think, like, yeah, if you're trying to, so my co-founder does this to me all the time. Like, I built an AI CRM for myself because I was like, I don't like HubSpot that much. Like, I like it. It's okay. I don't need to sign up for the ridiculous pricing later, even if it's 90% off now. Like, I know that expires. And I was like, I know the 6 criteria, the 6 things I want to track, right? Like, I won't waste people's time here with them, but maybe I'll write a LinkedIn post on it. So I built it. Took like 6 or 8 hours, which was like 5 hours more than I thought it was going to take, right? And during that time, no demos were done, no sales emails were sent, no customers were talked to, right? It was just purely. I loved building it. It was fun. But my co-founder's like, this feels a lot like the work about the work. Like, you're not actually. Like, I'm building stuff, you're selling stuff. You weren't actually selling anything for that day. You were like, it's cool, I like it, but like, where, could you have just paid $50 for Lightfield and gotten maybe to the same place, or like 80% the same place, right? And so I think that's the trade-off, where it's like, yeah, if salespeople are building stuff that's like really building stuff, like, definitely not what they're paid to do, and definitely not the best use of their time. That said, I wrote a piece in Growth Unhinged, Kyle's newsletter, about how you can use just regular Claude, not Claude Code. You can also do it with Claude Code, but with regular Claude, to just like figure out who to follow up with, right? Connect it to your Gmail, connect it to your calendar, connect it to like whatever meeting organizer, your meeting recorder you use. I use Crane because it has an MC, it has a really easy way to connect it. And I can just go in on Friday morning and be like, hey, what sales meetings did I have this week that need a follow up, right? Go look at my email, go look at my calendar, go look at my meeting recordings, and like, tell me what I need to do. And that's incredibly powerful. And by the way, like, good luck doing that in Salesforce. like I don't even know how to do that query in Salesforce. Or like, who emailed me this week that I haven't emailed back? Because that happens. I have sort of inbox zero, but every once in a while somebody slips through, right? And it's like, oh, Ben emailed you about this podcast and you didn't get back to him about a date. Like, and you don't need to use AI to then go back and forth and schedule the podcast. You just need to write a short email. Right. I mean, if it's post conference or whatever, that's what we built Skip for. It's like, great, export it into a CSV so I can run a campaign on those people. Right. You don't need to build a new thing when you have a $99 tool that'll do the thing for you much better than you could build yourself. But I do think that, like, there is, in these like micro use cases, there's value. I think it's sort of like software, disposable software, right? Like, I'm not building that to sell to you or to like share on LinkedIn, like, hey, everybody come download my thing, right? I'm just building it for me to use, and then you don't need to deploy it to Git. You don't need to scale up your compute, right? Like, that sort of thing is pretty easy. But by the way, public service announcement, if you're scaling up your compute, there are other models besides Claude that are much cheaper. So like, when you're, I'm sure ReviOps, I'm sure you guys use a bunch of, like, we use all the models, right? I mean, like, each model is better or worse at certain things. There are people that have spent hundreds of hours figuring that out. It changes every time somebody releases a new model, and people are doing that like every week or two, right? So even just optimizing your cost structure and optimizing like the tool you're built, like, that's also a reason why SaaS is going to stick around, because like, that's pretty much a full-time job now.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I know the fact that like Codex is like a hot take at this point is kind of funny to me, because I'm like, Codex, I mean, it seems kind of obvious that it's like, if you've used both, it's like clearly better at the coding side, and you use it with Claude as one of the agents. That's my take, at least, But anyways, my point is, all of this is bewildering, right? It's like, you're right. Everything you said is right. And my Lovable website kind of seems like it refutes my point. And it's like, wait, but you just said how hard it has been to pull all this data across all these systems into one place, but he just used it to go check his emails across a couple systems to find out who follow us up with. And the answer is, you can do certain things at certain levels and certain depth. And the deeper you go, the more complex it gets. And so the problem is like, yeah, you can do that. But now it's like, well, I want to now analyze the entire set of systems, across all time, and look at signals across all the new platforms, and then make a decision. So it's like, but they look like the same thing, right? Why is the other one so much more complicated than just looking at my local, sales or Salesforce, or not Salesforce, but like closed CRM, and go analyze my follow-ups for this week? Well, because the scope on the data and the systems are so limited. So that's where it's confusing to people, is that it seems like a superpower. I'm just as much as an early adopter on AI as everyone. I'm deep into Whisper. I have all the Claude Code model, or all the LLM models and agents that I'm running. I have not done Claudebot. I refuse. And
well, by the way, I mean, if you do Claudebot, don't run it on your local machine. Like there are ways to run it in the cloud that are 100 times safer. I mean, people don't get that. Like Claudebot is a great way for somebody to hack everything, like your bank, like
exactly.
And it's the sizzle is there. It's like, oh, wouldn't this be cool to like reorganize my life and just do everything for me on my computer? It's like including wire all your money to somebody else. Like you give it a lot more power than you realize you're giving it. Maybe don't, like, or maybe find a safe way to use it. So I think you're exactly right. To me, the power of that individual salesperson getting a lot out of AI really focuses on either choosing good vendors for like scalable stuff, or the single player experience. If you're doing single player mode, like just look at my calendar, just look at my meetings, right? Just, like it'll still, like that query will still take time. Like if I'm, that it isn't like it's instant, like a HubSpot query. It's like, yeah, I'll wait 3 or 4 minutes for it to go through everything, right? Maybe 5. Right. But that's fine, because it's like, it would have taken me half an hour and I probably would have gotten distracted and not finished it. So, I mean, there is a trade-off, but I think as soon as you try and build something that like what you built with ReviOps, that's needs to be reliable, that can't be wrong, right? That isn't kind of like a human augmentation, human in the loop kind of a process, but more like truly an AI agentic standalone process. It's not like a Saturday afternoon while I watch football kind of project. Like it's, it's, you need to know what you're doing. And I think people shouldn't feel guilty for not doing that. I think that's the other thing, is it's like, I get a lot of like, I feel bad that I'm not like running all these agents and doing all this stuff. And it's like, don't. Like, are you closing deals? If you're a salesperson, like your job is to close deals. Maybe just do more of that.
That's, I think, a good point, because like there was this guy, there's so many levels of poor decisions I'm seeing in the world, and it's typically coming from people under the age of 30, which is funny, because they haven't been through the loops of us grizzlied older people, where it is this guy who's a probably 23, 24-year-old founder, a GTM agency, and he just did this whole post on, I'm scaling to $1 million in less than 30 days, or to like $1 million ARR. And I like told up my community, I'm like, I'm going to watch this guy. I promise you he's going to fall off a cliff in about 30 days, even if he succeeds, because there's a constraint on fulfillment, which he does not yet see.
Right.
And that he's going to sell the shit out of it. He doesn't have the infrastructure, the know-how, the playbooks, the technology to actually give the people what they want. And so he's going to be pulling all-nighters for the next 90 days and you won't hear from him. That's exactly what happened. And then he came back and he put out his first newsletter again. And he says, I've been like in my bedroom for the last 60 days. All I've been doing is building out a open source replacement to Clay. And I'm like, what happened to your agency, dude? Like, what happened to the thing you were building? And the truth is, he probably scaled up. He probably lost all the clients. He probably is sitting there going like, what am I doing with my life? And a lot of, especially GTM agency owners, they love to distract themselves with that next kind of homegrown project that they're building. And so, yeah, I mean, it's very interesting to watch, where I'm like, do you guys want to be rich and build a sustainable business, or do you want to just keep on jumping from software hack to this to that? It's strange. I'll touch on one last piece because I know we got to wrap up here in a second. You said something earlier about how the AI can't be wrong. And this gets back to the probabilistic versus deterministic idea between the systems. And there was a post on LinkedIn the other day about how there was a screenshot of Claude putting out this like SDR manager job rec and basically saying, we're hiring, we need an SDR manager. And it's like, wait, well, I thought Claude was going to take over, for the salespeople. And the thing is, and then this guy responded and did an article on it. He basically said, like, what people just fundamentally don't get is that AI is probabilistic, and you need deterministic outcomes in sales and marketing, not probabilistic. And the problem is, even like I said in our own tool, we have one client who they just are constantly screwing up their data sets because AI is just overwriting stuff. But if you do that at an organization that has real pipeline and real revenue, not just something you just are hacking together as a small fry GTM agency, you're going to literally wreck pipeline. You're going to wreck like potentially hundreds of millions of dollars in deal flow at a bigger company. And that's just on the AI hallucination side. But what people don't get is that one of my companies was called Source Water. We were a tool that aggregated all of the data around oil field wells in North America and where the water was coming and going. Long story short, there's a lot of water in oil and gas. Turns out that when you pull dinosaur blood out of the ground called oil, it comes out about 3 to 14 parts water to oil. So there's up to 14 times the amount of water that comes out of the ground. So we built a whole analytics tool around tracking all of that and managing it. And we had tens of millions of data points plotted geospatially on a map. And I swear to God, we would get calls where the person we sold the contract to would be like, I just looked at my well. There's tens of millions of wells. And I found one that was 30 feet away where it should be. And I'm like, bro, it's 30 feet. Like, do you realize how hard it is for us to like map this perfectly? And he was mad about this one stupid dot. And I say that to say, like, even if you don't use AI, even with a deterministic system, computer science and computer engineering is hard. Data engineering is a whole discipline. When we built that product, I remember we were such idiots. We was like 2016, and we had the wrong team with the wrong engineers and the wrong CTO. And I remember we didn't even know what the word data engineering was. So we thought we had to hire somebody who handled data. So we hired a data scientist. And all he needed was like R and a little bit of Python. And he had no clue. And then I went on this journey of like learning, well, there's this thing called a data engineer. And then you need a data wrangler who defines the different data sets. And, and you have to build these things called ETLs. And, I didn't know any of it. So I'm saying all that to say, like, this problem is so much bigger and more challenging when you get into data. And my prediction, and I could be so wrong, I might look back on this video and just go, well, what an idiot that guy was. I just think we're going to have a real interesting thing happen in 12 months where I think the SaaS revenue will come back up. I think Salesforce and HubSpot are screwed for other reasons beyond the AI, but that's a different story.
I agree with that. I think that, I'll put a name to it. I think that it's now so easy to stitch things together with AI that this whole HubSpot value prop of like all your data is in this one place. And if they opt out of your marketing emails, it'll apply to your sales email, or like they fill out the form and we know that they're a customer. Like all that value goes away when you can just innate in your way to the same place, even as a big organization. Like to me, I think like the value and they're, maybe I just noticed this, but like their pricing is insane. And so it's like, why would I pay $2,000 to host a website when I could pay $0 or $40 on Webflow for just as good of a website that communicates with my customer database just as well? Like, anyway, that's my take on why they're going to come under pressure. It's more that it's just going to be harder and harder for them to continue the like super premium price point for integration when integration has become so cheap and easy. Not that it's truly like effortless, but it's a hell of a lot easier than it was before.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at the G2 reviews, and it's always Salesforce at the top, then it goes HubSpot because the reviews are like 24,000 on G2. G2 Crowd is like a review platform for software for anybody. Google it. And I always just like wonder. I'm like, I built software on top of HubSpot. ReviOps has an unofficial HubSpot app. Same thing with Salesforce. I know these tools, and I'm just bewildered that they have the sales that they do. Like I just think they're so cumbersome and so crappy, and like you have to have 5 other sales enablement tools on top.
That's what I think one of the things that I've never I know, but I don't like truly know, is the human side of it. I mean, one of my advisee companies was a YC darling, like raised a shit ton of money. It was doing well. They brought in a CFO. They just moved over to HubSpot from Salesforce. New CFO comes in from like a big company, from like an HP or a really big company, and immediately is grousing about how all her friends are on Salesforce and she thinks they should move back. It was a botched year-long $250,000 migration, and she wants to turn around, lose another year, and spend another $250,000 going back just because that's what her friends are familiar with and say the cool companies do. So I do think that there's just a huge human component to that choice where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, my friends do this, or the CRO used to use it at his last company. I did hear, I think it was on LinkedIn, that ADIO is actually losing customers to HubSpot because there's just so many more integrations. So like, I don't know if you guys integrate with ADIO, we don't, but it's like not better enough to be worth not having the integration depth that a HubSpot or a Salesforce has, losing to HubSpot specifically. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with like the human relationships and the sort of peer pressure or not peer pressure is maybe the wrong word, but just like the group wisdom, as it were, where it's like, oh, this companies of a certain stage should use this product.
There's no doubt. I think that I've been shocked. I didn't understand the term influencer until I got into the cold email space, where I've just been shocked by, somebody says something and everybody goes, we're going in that direction. It's like there's a analogy of deer where, I don't know if this is true. I heard it someplace, so ChatGPT it, and maybe I'm completely wrong. But what I heard was that in a herd of deer, that basically they're all kind of watching the edges of the field to say like, shit, should we go? It might not be deer. It might be like gazelle or something, but like a larger group of animals. And as soon as 50%, like almost to the single person, the single unit, decides that they're out, like they're moving, like they will go. And the whole herd will move as one. I didn't realize humans were like that until I got into the GTM space. But now it's like one person says, hey guys, you got to do this. This is what I'm doing. A few posts from that, and all of a sudden everybody has completely dropped the last thing they're doing, and they are off following that. So human dynamics and human influence and human persuasion is a wild thing to watch. And you could just be like, why are you going in that direction? There's a cliff. And you could scream it at people. That's what happened with SYC, right? As I was screaming at people, I'm like, guys, like, there's like, now here's the thing. If anyone doesn't know SYC, I was in a group with Jesse. He owns Lead Magic, and we got into a big kind of debate around why Suppabases cannot handle analytic data sets. The stupid argument, but I still know for a fact that
the group was about outbound. Like the group was supposed to be discussions of outbound, and there was a solid day where all the posts were about the pluses and minuses of Supabase and like the alternatives to it. And it was like, am I in the wrong group? Like, what are you guys talking about here?
Well, exactly, because that's where the sales world has now veered into, and even more so since that happened. I think, I would say I lost the battle from a perception, because I think people still believe that Supabase can do all these crazy things. But that's the thing, is that people haven't reached the edge case that I'm describing. So it's like, and that's what actually made me realize about a year and a half ago, I was the first person on planet Earth to negotiate an enterprise contract with Clay. I think so, because I got on a call with Varun and their head of GTM, about a year, almost close to 2 years ago. And I said, guys, because we were sending like 9 million emails per month for this particular client. I'm like, look, we need millions of Clay credits per month. Your current pricing will bankrupt us. We're not going to spend $80,000 a month on whatever the Clay credits were. And I was like, I need a better pricing. And so I negotiated this contract. They're like, we don't do enterprise. We're product led. We're just getting into enterprise. This is pre-Salesforce deals and that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty sure I pushed them on that. And it made me realize at that moment, because I thought I was a small little rinky-dink, agency with less than 100 clients. Turns out I was one of the largest GTM agency sending volumes in the world. I just didn't realize it at the time. They're like, look, we have over 5,000 customers, and we've never had anyone do that type of credit enrichment volume. So I just think that the vast majority of people in that group, SYC, and I think in the GTM community in general, they've never gotten past, if they're agencies, past 5 clients. I think the vast majority of people in this market who have very loud voices are just shouting. That one guy, Ben, he was on my podcast. You can look at that down below. He was an SDR for Sift, and has the loudest voice in the room, but he's just an SDR, right? He has no sense of product. He has no sense of all this other stuff.
Which Sift?
Sift MCP or something. I don't know. But anyways, he's one of the people that has given me the hardest times in those groups, arguing with me about this and that. And I'm like, look, I feel like I'm arguing with somebody who just doesn't have that. They just don't have the context. They don't have the understanding. So it's like almost arguing with like a child around a concept that they just haven't yet explored. It's like the kid goes, well, it's so easy to climb Mount Everest. And it's like, okay, well, why don't you go try?
Yeah, it's like talking to my kid about being a Major League Baseball player. It's like when you look at the stats, actually, nobody is going to play in the major leagues. Like, it's so unlikely. But when you're, 10 or 12, like, that's plan A. Like
exactly. It's like, it's so easy. What do you mean? I'm just going to get up there. I'm going to swing a few bats,
Aaron Judge is there. It's like, Aaron Judge is also like a beast,
Yeah, so. Exactly. He's the genetic profile of like the top 0.00001% on planet Earth. All right. Well, I know we're basically out of time. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Yeah. So Skip.ai, any company with a Y in it will do. No, Skip.ai is the company. We have a newsletter that focuses on go-to-market stuff. You can find it on the website. I write there twice a week, and people seem to really like it. And then on LinkedIn, I'm, to my knowledge, the only Alex Shartsis on LinkedIn, so I'm pretty easy to find there. Post a few times a week on a variety of things. I'm told I should tighten it up, but it's founder stuff, go-to-market, and M&A are the 3 topics that I hit the most.
Very cool. All right. Well, everyone, I always ask one last question. If you have to leave anybody with one piece of wisdom, doesn't have to be about this conversation, it could be about life, it could be about whatever. What's like the number one principle or insight that you could give the world? That's the last question.
The thing I've been thinking about a lot, and you say it like that fits this question, is focus. I mean, I think right now, especially with social media and the anxious generation and all that stuff, all these shiny objects, Claude Code, OpenClaw, et cetera, I think focus is just more important than ever. And I mean, I say it also to remind myself, it's not that I'm anywhere close to perfect at it, but I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is that they find something that works and then they go try the next shiny object when they could have just kept doing the thing that works a little bit longer and maybe work a little bit better. And so to me, I think in this current GTM moment we're having, focus is the number one thing. And if building your thing in Claude Code is what helps you maintain focus, great. If buying something off the shelf helps you maintain focus, which is, I mean, pro tip, probably more likely, do that. But to me, it's like, that's the thing that I think is the most precious commodity right now is focus.
So I'll add on to that. I was laying in bed. When you start asking ChatGPT these types of questions, shit's gone wrong. So since I'm complaining about everyone outsourcing their brain to AI, I am now going to show you how I did it. So I said, give me one word of wisdom that I need to know based upon this very moment in time, based upon what I've gone through in my life, and based upon what I'm about to go through. And it has access to a lot of shit. It has like all my Notion, all my G files. Like I gave it access to a bunch of stuff. So it says endure. That's the first words in bold. Endure. Not tolerate, not survive, endure. You've built from zero multiple times. You've carried teams, systems, pressure, expectations. You've rebuilt identity while scaling revenue. You've questioned fairness, love, loyalty, and direction. You've stared at blank dashboards and blank ceilings, and you're about to step into a bigger arena again. The next season will test your patience more than your intelligence, your restraint more than your ambition, your stability more than your speed. Endure the uncertainty, endure the slow compounding, endure the quiet seasons where nothing looks dramatic but everything is forming. Most men break not from failure but from fatigue. You don't need more force right now. You need endurance. I was just like, you know. So
yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I wonder. I haven't asked that question because I don't want to know the answer.
I know. I just said that to my wife last night. I was like, because I went on and I asked the question. I said, what do you think will happen in the next 5 years of my life? How do you think I'll progress? How do you think the market will evolve? How do you think I'll play with it? How do you play within it? Do not give me fantasy. Do not give me bullshit. Do not give me hyperbole. Give me what you think honestly will happen based upon what you know about me. And I was about to push send, and I said to my wife, I'm laying in bed, and we're laughing about it. And I'm like, it's going to say, well, you're going to fucking die. The whole world's going to come to an end.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Cancer. Cancer.
Exactly.
COVID-2 is going to get you. Like
I
we
know,
predict. Yeah,
I know.
it's like, can you have like a doomer? What if you had like a doomer version of ChatGPT? It's just, instead of being like, Ben, that's a great idea. It's like, Ben, you're so effed right now.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, I think that was a good way to end it. I'll see you guys later. There's going to be some show notes. Go ahead and click the links below if you want to check out Skip or ReviOps or any of the tools out there. We're going to put links down there. There's going to be a link to the LinkedIn profile, and definitely go check them out. I'll see you guys later on the Next Gen Sales Leader podcast. Peace.